and welcome to With Chanakya. In today's video, you'll be learning the basics of SQL using a sample Lego dataset that we've created. Let's get started. Alright, for today's tutorial, we have a set of practice exercises that'll help us to navigate through the basics of SQL. We have a Lego dataset that we'll be playing around with, and I'll walk you through each of these solutions today. As always, all of the artifacts from this tutorial, including the practice exercises and their solutions, are available on my GitHub repository. If you're looking for more content like this, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click on the bell icon to be notified when I release more videos. The first step for today's video is going to be connecting to MySQL. You can use any number of clients, but I'm just going to connect to MySQL using the terminal here. I'm using Visual Studio Code, and I have MySQL already installed on my Mac machine. You can use MySQL on the cloud or through XAMPP or any other server to access it and follow along this tutorial. Boom, so I'm now logged into MySQL. Let's go ahead and get started with the practice exercises. The first exercise for us today is going to be to create a database. A database is then going to contain the tables for our data. So let's go ahead and use the create command to create a database. So before we do that, I'm just going to go ahead and do show databases to show you the databases that we already have within my MySQL instance. Then we're going to go ahead and say create database and then give it a name. We're going to call it Lego DB. And there we go. Our Lego database is now created. We can go ahead and say show databases once again. And you can see that now Lego DB has been created within MySQL. The next exercise will be to create a Lego sets table within that database. Before we go about running any queries within the database, we have to select which database we're using within MySQL. So we'll go ahead and say use Lego_DB, and it'll make sure that we're now using the Lego DB database that we created in the previous step. Just to make sure that the queries from here are easier, I'm going to create a file where we can write our SQL queries. So the next exercise for us is to create a Lego sets table. And there's a couple of fields that we need, and each field has specific requirements for us. So let's walk through this. We're going to use the create command once again to create a table. This time we're going to say create table. I'm going to add another keyword called if not exists, which means that if the table already exists, then don't do anything. But if it doesn't, then create the table. We're going to give it the name Lego sets. And then within this, we can go ahead and add all the fields that we want for our table. The first field that we want is ID. We've mentioned it as an integer, so we're going to say int. We want it to be a primary key, so we'll go ahead and give it the primary key keyword. And we also want this to auto increment, so we'll go ahead and say auto increment. The next field for us will be the release date, so we'll go ahead and say release date, and then give it the type date, and we'll say not null. The third one is going to be the model name, which needs to be a string. So that'll be a varchar, and we'll say 255 characters. And then we'll say total pieces will be an integer, and then theme will once again be a varchar. Perfect. Now that we have our SQL statement that'll create the table, we'll go ahead, copy this over into our MySQL command prompt, paste it, and let it run. And you can see that it ran successfully. You can now actually go and say show tables, and I'll show you that we have a Lego sets table within our database that we created. And you can also describe this table to see what type of fields you have within the table. So you can go ahead and say describe Lego sets. And I'll show you what fields you have, what type each field is, whether null is accepted or not, whether it's a primary key or not, defaults, and other information about that table. The next exercise for us is to update the table that we created in the previous step. So here we want two updates to be made. First, we want to alter the table so that the model name does not accept null values. And the second one, we want to add a new column, availability, as a string. So let's go ahead and create another file where we can do that. So we're going to use the alter command here. So we're going to say alter. We want the table to be altered. So we're going to say table. Then we're going to give it which table that is. And we're going to use the modify command and then the actual field. So in our case, we want to modify the model name field first. It is a varchar, size 255. And then we want to modify this so that it has not null. So we go ahead and add that there. So let's go ahead and copy that. So you can now see our query ran. We can go back again and we'll say describe. And you can see that now model name is not going to accept null any longer, whereas total pieces and themes and others will. So that change reflected on the table. The second change that the practice exercise wants us to do is add a new column into the table. So for that, we're going to say alter table. We're going to say Lego sets is our table name. Instead of modify here, though, we're going to say add column. We're going to give the column name as availability. And we're going to give it a varchar, again, of size 255. And we can also mention after, meaning which column do you want to add it after. In this case, you can see we have our theme as the last one. So we're going to go ahead and say after theme, which is the last column there. So let's go ahead and run this. And you can see that ran. So we'll go ahead and say describe our Lego sets once again. And you can see the new column availability was added as a varchar into our table. Now that we have a table, the next step for us is to make sure that we can insert some data into that table. So we're going to go ahead and say we want to insert this record, which is the Lego creator Taj Mahal. We want to insert that into the Lego sets table. We can easily do that using the insert into SQL command. So we'll go ahead and say insert into. We'll give it the table name, Lego sets. And then we can either specify the specific columns that we want to insert into, or if we're inserting into all the columns, then we can just leave them empty. We can just fail to mention that as well. So we're going to go ahead and say release date, model name, total pieces, and theme. We're going to leave availability empty for now on purpose. I'll show you why later. So we'll go ahead and say we want to add the values here. And then I'm going to copy paste some values that we already have. So we're going to add the Lego creator Taj Mahal here, which has the number of pieces, the data release, and then the specific theme that it's going into. This order matches. So release date is number 1, model name is number 2, pieces is number 3, and theme is number 4. So let's go ahead and copy this over to MySQL, run it. You can see one row was affected. You can go ahead and use select, which is to query your table. We'll say select star from Lego sets and run that. And you can see we have now inserted one row into the table. The ID was auto incremented as 1, and the availability, since we didn't mention anything, is null. The next exercise that we have is to insert multiple records into the same Lego sets table. So the only change that we'll be making to this query is that now, instead of just one record, we actually want to add multiple. It's as easy as adding commas here. So we leave the entire query as is. We're just going to copy this whole query here. And next to values, we can simply paste as many values as you want using a comma like that. Once again, I'm going to copy these values. We have 3 Lego sets that we want to add here to the table. Let's go ahead and add all 3 of those. Paste them here. And you can see we're now adding the Iron Man helmet, Lego Old Trafford, and the dinosaur fossils all into our table. So it's easy as adding that or inserting many records at once into your table. So paste that, run it. You can see 3 rows were affected. We'll go ahead and say select star from Lego sets, run that. And you can now see we have 4 records, all of them auto incremented. The availability is still null because we have not been adding that in our insert statements, but we now have all of the details inserted within our table. The next exercise for us is to insert some specific columns into the Lego set table. This is very similar to what we just did. The only reason why we're running this command is so that it'll be helpful for one of the next practice exercises that will be coming up against. So let's quickly take that query and I'll walk you through it. In this case, we're basically inserting into Lego sets with only 3 columns: release date, model name, and theme. Everything else is going to be null. And we have 2 sets here, the Titanic and the Colosseum. Obviously, the pieces and the availability are missing. So let's go ahead and run this. Again, you can see 2 rows were affected. We'll go ahead and say select star from Lego sets and run that. And you can now see we have 6 records within our Lego sets table. The next exercise here is another command, which is delete. So in this case, we want to delete specific rows from our table. In this case, it's asking us to delete all of the Lego sets which have the theme as Marvel. So in this case, we have only one of them, which is the Lego Iron Man helmet. So let's go ahead and write the query for that. So we'll create another file for that. Let's call it delete.sql. And here we'll say delete from Lego sets. And the new keyword that will be introduced to you here is where. So where is a great way to mention conditions when you want to specifically delete something. So we could have said delete from Lego sets to delete all of the rows within Lego sets. But if we want to delete only a specific set of rows, then we can use conditions using the where clause. So here we're going to say delete from Lego sets where, in this case, we want the theme as Marvel. So we'll go ahead and say theme equal to Marvel. We'll go ahead and run that delete command. 1 row affected. We'll go ahead and say select star from Lego sets, run that. And you can see the Marvel or the Iron Man helmet that was previously there here is now deleted from this table. The next exercise here is the update command. So this is where we can update rows within the table. We previously saw how we can use the alter command to update specific attributes or the schema of the table. In this case, we'll use update to actually change or update the data within the table itself. So in this case, we have 2 things to do. One is they're asking us to update the Lego Titanic to 990 pieces. So right now, Lego Titanic does not have any pieces. So let's go ahead and do that first. So we'll go ahead, create a new file. We'll call this update.sql. Oh, looks like there's an update.sql already there. We'll rename this as alter.sql, create a new file, update.sql. And to do this, we'll go ahead and say update the table that we want to update on. And then we'll use the set keyword. So we'll say set the field that we want to set, total pieces. And we want to set Titanic to 990. So we're going to say 990 where, because we have to specify that specific thing, where, and we can do this 2 ways. Either we can say where the model name equal to Lego Titanic, or we'll use the ID in this case because we have that handy. So we'll say where ID equal to, and the ID of Titanic is 5. So we'll go ahead and say 5, and we can go ahead and update that. We'll do the exact same thing for the other Lego set as well. Set total pieces to 9036, where ID equal to, and in this case, it's 6. So we'll go ahead and copy both of these, paste them. You can see both of them ran, 1 row each updated. We'll say select star from Lego sets. Boom. So now we have the total pieces updated on our table for all of the Lego sets as well. The next one within update is to update the availability column to be retail for all Lego sets. So in this case, we're just going to change our condition a bit. Basically, we want to say where all the Lego sets, the availability is null, we want to update it to be retail. So we'll go ahead and say update Lego sets set availability equal to retail where availability is null. So we'll go ahead and copy that, paste it here, run that. You can see 5 rows were changed. We'll go ahead and say select star from Lego sets. So in this case, again, we did the same set keyword to set the availability to retail. We again use where for the condition, but instead of equals to, we use the is keyword to mention that if availability is null, then set it as retail. The next practice exercise is quite an easy one for us because we've been doing it throughout the other practice exercises, but it's to retrieve all the data from the Lego sets table. So again, that's a simple command. We use select, which is used to query the table, star, which basically mentions which columns within the table we're retrieving. Star means all the columns. We can also go ahead and say just release date, model name, and total pieces. That's all that we want from Lego sets, which is our table. And run that, and you can see we get that specific data. So that's exercise number 9. The next exercise, again, is very similar, but we're being asked to retrieve the data and format the column names using aliases. So in this case, we want to be able to get model underscore name as model name. We want to get total underscore pieces as total pieces, theme as theme, and the theme column, all the data to be all caps. So we can do this in a couple of ways. Let's go ahead and create a new file. We'll say select as .sql, and we'll say select. First column that we want is model name. So we'll go ahead and say model name, and we use the as keyword to assign a alias to that column. So we'll say model underscore name as model name. I've given this quotations because there's a space in between. If you don't have a space, you don't need to add the quotations. So we'll say model name as model name, and then the next one we'll say total pieces as total pieces. And then we want the theme, but we want it in uppercase. So we'll say upper of theme as theme from Lego sets. Simple as that. We'll go ahead and paste this. And you can see we now have model name, we have total pieces, and we have the theme, but in this case, all the theme data is now in uppercase. All right, so let's up the ante a bit. So the next one for us is to retrieve the Lego sets information from this table using a couple of different conditions. So a bit more advanced queries that we're going to start running here. So the first one for us is to write a query to retrieve all of the Lego sets which have more than 5,000 pieces. So if you take a look at this particular table that we have right now, all but one of them, which is Old Trafford, Manchester United, should be true for this condition. So they should come in our result set. So we're going to go ahead and write that query. Let's just create a new file to write all of these condition queries. So we'll call this as select.sql. So we're going to say select star from Lego sets. We're going to use the where condition to define what our condition is here, or sorry, the where keyword to define what our condition is. So we'll say where total pieces is greater than 5,000. So we're basically asking for all of the Lego sets, give us all of the columns wherever the total pieces is greater than 5,000. And there you go. So we have all the Lego sets where the total number of pieces is more than 5,000. The next query that we have is to get all the Lego sets which are released after 2020 and are from the creator theme. So if you look at our data, there's 2 that are there from the creator theme, and both of them were released after 2020. So this is a data operation. So here, we're going to go ahead and say select star from Lego sets, which is our table. And then we're going to go ahead and say where. The first condition that we have is all Lego sets which are released after 2020. So we're going to go ahead and say release date is greater than, and we're going to go ahead and say 2020-01-01, which is January 1st, 2020. and. So and is another keyword where you can use where both the conditions have to be true in order for this query to retrieve any results for us. So in this case, the release date has to be greater than 2020, and all of them have to be from the creator theme. So we're gonna go ahead and say that. So we'll go ahead and run this query for us. And there you go. You have two results, both of them from the creator theme, both of them released after 2020, January 1st, 2020. All right, so the next practice exercise for us is to get all the Lego sets where the model name contains an M. We can do this using the like keyword. So we're gonna go ahead and say select star from Lego sets, which is our table name, where, again, because we want to specify the condition, we're gonna say go ahead and say model name, and we'll use a like keyword. So we'll say where model name like, and then we can give it an expression here. So we can say M percentile, which means that M followed by any number of characters. That means that the word starts with M. We can say percentile M, which means that the word ends with M. In our case, we want any word or any model name that contains M anywhere. So we'll say percentile M percentile for our like expression. We'll go ahead and run this. And you can see Lego Taj Mahal has an M, Lego Old Trafford has an M, and Lego Colosseum has an M. Now, if we were to change this just a bit and run it like this, which means that all the models that end with an M, we would only get one result. So that's the power of using like in your salt queries. The next practice exercise for us is to query and retrieve all of the Lego sets that were released between 2020 and today. Once again, we'll use this using the where clause, and we'll use a keyword called between. So we'll go ahead and say select star from Lego sets where we want the release date. And instead of using an and type operator, we'll go ahead and add something called between as a keyword. So between, and we'll say the date is 2020-01-01. That's between 2020. And instead of saying today's date manually, we can go ahead and say current date. And this will give us the current date within MySQL. We'll go ahead and run this. And you can see it's showcasing all of the Lego sets between 2020, January 1st, and today's current date. So this is how you can use the between keyword to get results within your SQL queries. The next practice exercise for us is to get all the Lego sets that have less than 4,000 pieces or more than 9,000 pieces. So once again, we'll go ahead and write select star from Lego sets where total pieces is less than 4,000. And here we'll use another keyword, which is or. Total pieces is greater than 9,000. So in this case, this is going to retrieve a result set for us where either of the conditions are true. So either total pieces is less than 4,000 or total pieces is greater than 9,000. So let's go ahead and run this and see what results we get. So there you go. We have one set which is less than 4,000, and we have two which is greater than 9,000 total pieces. Moving on, the next practice exercise that we have is retrieve all of the Lego sets except for those that are within the creator and Duplo teams. So in this case, we're going to use a new keyword here. So we're going to go ahead and say select star from Lego sets where, and we basically have to mention that we want those to be excluded. So the way that we can do that is we can say theme not in, and we can say creator, and we can say Duplo. Take this, run that query, and you can see that it's giving us all of the Lego sets that we have that are not within those specific themes. So you can use the not in operator. You can also use the in operator, which is exactly the same but the opposite, which basically means that it's going to show all the sets that are in those specific themes. We don't have anything in Duplo in our data set, so it's only showing those within the creator theme. The next practice exercise for us is to write a query that will retrieve the 3 most recent Lego sets by release date. So we're going to do that using the order by clause. So we'll go ahead and say select star from Lego sets. We're not going to use where because we don't have any conditions, but instead we're going to use order by, and we're going to say order this by release date, and we're going to say order it in descending. And then we want to limit this to the top 3. So we're going to say limit 3. So we're limiting it to 3 results from the result set. So we'll go ahead and paste that, run that, and you can see it's giving us the latest Lego sets that are in our data set based on the release date. So you can order it based on the release date. The next exercise for us is focused on aggregations. So in this case, we want to get some aggregated results based on the theme. So how many average pieces are there per theme? How many maximum pieces are there per theme? How many minimum pieces are there per theme? So we'll go ahead and do that using a couple of different SQL keywords. So let's go ahead and write our query. So we'll say select. We want to see the average number of pieces. So we're going to use the average keyword on total pieces. And we're going to say this as average pieces. We'll then say the next one is the max keyword, which will give us the maximum out of that theme. So we'll say maximum on total pieces as max pieces. And then we'll say the same thing for min, which is min total pieces as min pieces. And then we'll say from Lego sets. Let's also showcase a theme as well so that we really know where this is coming from. And then to make sure that this all works, we're going to use the group by clause. So the group by theme. So basically what we're saying is we're asking SQL to group together all the Lego sets using these aggregations based on the theme. So if all of them are from the creator theme, it's going to sum them up to get the sum, or in our case, the average, the max value, the min value, etc. So you can use a lot of these different kinds of aggregation functions along with group by. Let's add another one to showcase the count as well. For each of the themes. So I'll go ahead and copy this and run that. And you can see within architecture, we have one set. Average number of pieces obviously is going to be the same, but for creator, you can see total sets, 7,341 of average pieces, 990 is the maximum number of pieces, and 3898 is the least number of pieces within that theme. We can also go over to average and we'll say floor, just to remove those decimal points since we're talking about Lego pieces. Go ahead and copy that. There you go. We have a fully formatted table which shows to us each theme, the total number of sets, the average number of pieces, the max pieces, and the min pieces per theme. Continuing on with aggregation functions, the next one that we want to take a look at is how do we use count to be able to determine which theme has more than one set. So based on the results that we just got, we know that creator is the answer, but let's get to that using SQL. So we'll go ahead and say select count star as total sets, and we'll say we want the theme as well as theme. Then we'll say from Lego sets, group by theme, and we're going to add one more here, which is the having clause. So this is very similar to where, but having can only be used on aggregations. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and say count of star is greater than 1. So we're basically saying aggregate on theme, get the count per theme, and then make sure that we filter it out so that we're only showing those which have only those themes which have more than one set within them. There you go. So creator is our answer, and the creator theme has 3 total sets. The next exercise for us is to get all the Lego sets grouped by theme, but then ordered by the total pieces. So you want to get each group of Lego sets based on the theme. We're not looking for an aggregation. We just want to list them out, but grouped by theme, and then order them by the total pieces within the theme that we've grouped them by. So instead of using the group by clause, which does aggregations, in this case, we're going to use the over and partition by keywords to achieve this within SQL. So let's go ahead and write that query. So we're going to go ahead and say select. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to say row number, which is a MySQL function. And then we'll use the over. And then within this, we'll go ahead and say partition by, and here we want to partition by theme, and then we want to order by the total pieces. So that's our partition that we're creating, and we want this to come out as, let's say, hash. It could be row number, it could be anything we want to call it. So that's one column that we're going to get. Let's also add the model name, let's add the theme, let's add the total pieces, and let's add the release date. And let's add the availability as well to our result that we're trying to call here. And last but not least, mention which table we want this from. It's from Lego sets. So basically, we're creating a partition here based off of the theme column, and then we're ordering all of them by total pieces. Easy peasy. Go ahead and paste that. And you can now see they're ordered by theme. And within theme, they're ordered by the total pieces. We can also change this. It's right now in ascending. We'll change it to descending so that the biggest Lego sets come at the top. Paste that. And you can now see the order has changed. Within creator, you have the Titanic at 990 and the Colosseum and so on and so forth. The last exercise for us within this tutorial would be to delete the Lego sets table. So we'll go ahead and do that using the drop command. We'll say drop table Lego sets. And now if you go ahead and say show tables, you can see that it's empty. There's no tables left in our database. Thank you for watching this tutorial. If you'd like more content like this, click the like button on the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell icon to get notifications about new videos that I release. Thanks for watching!